back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. I almost forgot what I was quitting there. So the first thing I want to do today is retract something I said in yesterday's podcast. None of the mean shit. I stand by all the mean shit, but I made a mistake. The song Cocaine was not written by that scumbag fucking Eric Clapton. It was written by a man named J.J. Cale. I've been receiving a lot of messages from disgruntled listeners informing me of my mistake, but I actually looked it up after I did the podcast last night. After I released the podcast, I was like, did Clapton even write that fucking song? Googled it, J.J. Cale. And I'm like, fuck, I'm going to get a few messages for sure. And yes, I did. And it turns out it was a good mistake to make because J.J. Cale is fucking gold. I've been listening to a little bit of his shit and he's exactly my vibe. Of course, anyone that writes the song Cocaine is my vibe. So that was a serendipitous mistake. Now I have a new guy I can listen to. Speaking of mistakes, I made a big one today. It's my wife's birthday tomorrow and her sister's coming down from Chennai to surprise her. And this morning, my wife's mum told me that. She's like, don't tell her, it's a big surprise. And I'm like, hey, I'm like Fort Knox. Nothing leaves these lips unless it's been processed thoroughly, checked, cross-checked, and then it's released. Plus, I've already forgotten what you said. What were you saying? Anyway, 45 minutes later, we're in the car going down to get some almonds and pumpkin seeds. And I was breathing deeply. And when I breathe deeply at the moment, there's a catch in my side. It feels like it's completely cramping up. It's so fucking painful. I can't fucking sneeze. I haven't sneezed in like a week. Every time I get a good sneeze about to go, I get to the part where I'm like, and then the cramp kicks in. And I'm like, ah! And my sneeze disappears. It's fucking frustrating because who doesn't like a good sneeze? Anyway, we're in the car and that cramping shit's happening. And I'm like, ah! And my wife's looking over like, are you all right? And in my head, I said to myself, I probably need to see a doctor about this. I said that part in my head. And then out loud, I said, oh, it's all good because your sister's going to be here tomorrow. She can check on it. And my wife's like, my sister's what? And I'm like, yeah. There was nothing I could do about it. And my wife was not impressed. She loves a good surprise, and I fucked it up completely. And I said to my wife, can you at least just pretend you're surprised? And then we got home, and my wife said to her mum, so my sister's coming. And my mother-in-law looked at me not very happy. No one was very happy with me in that exchange. And so I went to my phone and messaged my sister-in-law saying, I'm so sorry. I completely fucked up. I ruined your surprise. And she's like, yeah, that's all right. Who even told you? And I'm like, your mum told me. And then she calls her mum and goes fucking off her head, off her fucking head, because she'd just finished a 16-hour shift at the hospital. She had just worked 7 days in a row as well, so she could get 3 days off to come surprise her sister. So she goes mental at her mum, and then my mother-in-law comes up to me again and just goes, why did you tell her you ruined the surprise? And I'm like, I thought that was what was happening. I thought it was all like, yeah, out in the open now. We can just talk freely like free human beings. And no, it wasn't like that. So everyone was pissed off at me. But thank God I'm still like a patient. I need to be nurtured. So no one can really get that angry at me because I'm still recovering. But what can you do? It's the antibiotics I'm on. They're making me cloudy and shit. Anyway, it's Monday, and after the week in hospital, we are returning back to our normal schedule. And our normal schedule means it is Ask Boyle. It's Ask Boyle time. I actually had a really good fucking hypothetical. Someone sent in a really good hypothetical a couple of weeks ago, and I said I was going to do it last week, but I was in hospital, and I just spent fucking an hour looking for the cunt and couldn't find it anywhere. So if you sent me in a hypothetical in the last few weeks, can you resend it to me? Because I can't fucking find it anywhere. I'm just going to get straight into this week's Ask Boyle because it's a fucking long one. If you've got a question to ask, just email me on boylecomedy@gmail.com. So, this week's Ask Le Boyal is from Sam. Sam over there in the US. I'm just going off memory. I think she's in Milwaukee. I think. Anyway, let's get to this week's Ask Boyle. Do you think someone who smokes weed every day should be a parent? I don't really even know if this is my question. I'm just really fucked up after my boyfriend told me he wants to have a baby in the next 2 years, or we'll just be one of those couples who never has kids. He just turned 34 and I'm 25. So I'm not in a rush, but his recent birthday, I think, really started to set in. We smoke weed every day. Smoke weed every day. Hey, it didn't fucking hurt Snoop, did it? We smoke weed every day, and I know I'd want to quit everything, even down to ibuprofen, once we start trying. This will be really hard for me since I've smoked pretty much every day of my life since I was 17. My boyfriend has smoked and drank pretty much since he was 12, 13, which is disturbing in itself. I just don't know how to start the conversation that I would really need his support to quit using shit to have a baby, since he won't even consider quitting or cutting back on the darts because he would be too cranky. And even after the pregnancy, I don't want our kid in a cloud of smoke either. I know my mum smoked and pretty much drank through her pregnancy with me, and I'm only kind of screwed up, but I was also pretty sheltered and didn't even know what weed smelled like until I started smoking. Then there's like about 4 paragraphs of personal shit about her parents being stoners, her boyfriend being a contractor that likes to drink on his lunch breaks, how they're starting a food truck and he's basically doing the bare minimum he needs to do, and she doesn't want that low energy to translate into his fatherhood. And then she goes, basically, how do I start a conversation that he needs to grow up a little before we make a child? Does he even need to grow up, or am I just trying to put off having a kid? Any input would be great. I just figure if I want parenting advice from anybody, it would be you for some reason. That is the biggest problem you have. By far, that is your main problem. Well, Sam, you have come to the right place. Do I think you should smoke weed every day? Some people can manage it. I've seen some very successful people smoke weed every day. And then on the other side of the coin is pretty much every single unsuccessful person I know smokes weed every day. I don't think it's a good idea to smoke weed every day. You're just escaping reality like any other thing. I think for most people it stops you from getting shit done. I know it makes you lethargic, but also you don't give yourself any chance of becoming bored. And boredom is what drives you a lot of the time. If you sat there long enough and just fucking got really fucking bored without throwing in a distraction, like your phone, fucking drinking, anything, weed, that boredom drives you to do things. People are like, I never get bored. And it's like, yeah, it's because you fucking play video games for 18 hours a day and get high. You don't even give yourself a fucking chance to get bored. I think if you're going to be a parent, it's better to smoke weed than be a fucking alcoholic. That's for goddamn sure. My dad smoked weed when we were growing up, and he hid it as well. And when I say hid it, I mean he put his bong in the top cupboard drawer in the kitchen. And one day I climbed up and reached up to that top fucking cupboard shelf to feel around for cookies and lollies and shit. And his yellow bong fell on top of my fucking head. All the bong water went all over me. And by the smell of it and the color of it, I don't think he was changing the bong water regularly. But I don't think it's a good idea to be smoking every day, no. And you probably want to sort that out before you fucking have kids as well. I mean, you can hide it from your kids and shit, but still, if it's a problem, it's a problem. You can find out if it's a problem or not. Just try and quit it for 1 month. See how you are after 1 month of no weed. From some of my hardcore pothead friends, they reckon that's the hardest one to quit. My mate Will said giving up weed was harder than giving up heroin. He could not fucking shake the weed. I'll tell you this, you don't have to be fucking straighty 180s, full hardcore fucking boils. You don't have to go as hard as I go. That's ridiculous. You'll end up with a fucking collapsed lung or something. But if you're going to have fucking kids, you're going to have to be fucking clear-headed because it fucks you up. You want to go into it with a little bit of sober momentum because there's that much fucking pressure in the early fucking period of parenting that you can spiral harder. You can really fucking spiral. So you want to head into it like sober and then like a couple of times a week, a few times a week, when the kid's asleep, have a couple of tokes on a joint or something, relax. You've done your work for the day, chill out. But you don't want to be waking up first thing in the morning and needing to fucking rip 3 bongs just to get you to fucking lunchtime. That's not where you want to be. That's a fucking problem. But before you even think about having kids, I suggest you go through a few little periods of sobriety. First, take 2 weeks off, see how you go, then a month, and then 3 months. And then after the 3 months, see where you're at. If you're even still together after 3 months of sobriety, then you can start talking kids. All right? All right. Anyway, I hope I saved your life, Sam. I love having that much power. I love the power just to mold people's lives. Anyway, that'll do for tonight. If you're enjoying the podcast, share it around, and I'll see you the fuck later.